You bring the energy, he'll do the rest. Martinez and Company, powered by Sports Radio 102.9 The Game.
You're going to hear it right here.
The show starts now.
All right, sometimes you got to do a take two. Welcome, everyone. Martinez coming here live Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays on the Coastal Sports Network. I thank and appreciate everyone who tunes in. Not only that, for those who actually tune in from all around the state of Florida, it is very, very much appreciated. For everyone who tunes in, also worldwide. As you guys know, we are heard not only here locally in the state of Florida, whether it be in Tampa or Spring Hill, Fort Myers, you name it. Everywhere and anywhere, we are heard live, so we do appreciate it here on the digital sports platform. Don't forget, you can also go to sr1029thegame.com, and you can download the all-new digital sports app directly from the website, so you guys will never miss a show, no matter who's on, whether it's being Pete in the morning from 7 to 10 a.m., myself from 10 to 12, and of course, my hermano, Rich Quinones, from 3 to 5 p.m. He will be back today in the saddle, as he always loves to say, from 3 to 5 p.m. So today, we're going to recap what happened at the USF women's match against FGCU over the weekend. So we'll recap that. That'll start off here as I do the recap and the rundown here of this morning. Also, Jason Kelce and his brother get a huge deal. And we'll talk about that as well. I might leave that with when Duncan Dad joins me here at 10:30. And NFL cuts. And I do believe I did see that Frank Gore Jr. was cut from the Bills. I could be wrong, but it seemed like that's what it was yesterday. So I think a lot of these NFL talented guys are coming in, even though Frank Gore, obviously we know him, Frank Gore Sr., that played the NFL. Looks like his son may be cut from one team, but it doesn't mean that there isn't another NFL team that will need his services. Also, Patriots get rid of a backup QB, and still a lot of talk about Drake May will become the starting QB. Listen, for me, I'm not a Patriots fan. Jacoby Brissett, from what it seems like, is going to be the starter out there for New England. And the same way when you look at the Steelers, you got still Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. I don't believe the Steelers, and I could check the wire here momentarily, but I don't believe there's been any new talk as far as we know. Supposed alleged Russell Wilson is supposed to be the starter out there with Pittsburgh. Now, Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. He's never been an under 500 team as well for the tenure he's had with the Steelers. So a lot of folks, the expectations in Pittsburgh are either extremely high in the hopes that he's going to do just fine, and or, again, I'll use it loosely, and or he can find himself with other coaches on the hot seat, hence Nick Sirianni. We're going to see what's going to happen with Green Bay come the following weekend when they play out in Brazil. So there's so many cuts, so many things that are going on in the NFL. CeeDee Lamb, who obviously would have gotten paid. Good for CeeDee Lamb. I don't know as much for the Dallas Cowboys. And an interesting thing that Jerry Jones said, for those who didn't hear, I'll play it a little bit later on in the show. And I'm just going to caution you that, yes, it's coming from the Pat McAfee show as far as how they read it, according to how Jerry Jones has stated it, as he mentioned that he doesn't need a GM because he's done the best daggone job he possibly can. I'll let you guys hear the audio a little bit later on. For those who are sensitive as far as any kind of foul language, when it comes on, I give you a forewarning because it's not super graphic, but it's Jerry Jones. And listen, there's been a lot of people that have said that they can't stand him. You have I believe Tim Barrington had mentioned it. I know Ryan Neff talked about he used to be a Dallas Cowboy fan, converted over to being a Kansas City Chiefs fan. And the reason why is because of Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones just, listen, I understand you try to do the best for your organization. I understand. I mean, you still got Dak Prescott you got to sign. You guys rub back your, once talented running back and who's going to see what happens, because you saw during some of the workouts here during camp that your Zeke Elliott was not in the shape that he's been at before. Also, speaking about Zeke, another former teammate, Juju Smith, going from the Patriots back to Kansas City because of one of the injuries that they had. So there is so much that's going to happen between here and 8 days from now when the NFL season physically starts. The 53-man run cut was done yesterday. So there's teams that are going to scramble. And those who don't have, unfortunately, their teams loaded up right now. Other guys that have been cut, I'm pretty sure they're probably going to come on as a practice squad. They'll figure out what's going on. Boston Scott is another one as a walk-on as a practice squad. Spent many times with the Eagles and then was cut by the Eagles and just cut by another team as well. So there's a lot of cuts, and I think a lot of teams have just gotten to the point where you could be a veteran, whether it be a wide receiver, defensive back, safety. You could be who you are, but if the teams feel that you just no longer have it, and then these younger guys are coming in through the draft that should be playing, come through and take your spot, take your roster spot, you might want to challenge yourself if you get the other opportunity with yet another NFL team. So we'll get into that and some more, but to recap, to start off with, if you guys missed the conversation last week between Coach Brown with our goalkeeper, Señorita Galak, you guys can go back and listen to it directly from the website. Also, I'll post up something a little bit later on as well. I had a great conversation with Coach Brown and with the goalkeeper, and she had yet another clean sheet performance with a 4-0 shutout on the match. They had an early matinee game on Sunday at Corbin Stadium. 630, I believe, were in attendance. And it was a 1 o'clock game. It was a hot one. They did take a break, a hydration break, excuse me, not dehydration, because they didn't want to get dehydrated. They ended up taking a hydration break. And more importantly, because it was hot, the men's game also was later on that evening. It was delayed because here, for those who don't know, if you're tuning in for the very first time here, welcome to Martinez and Company. But here in Florida, especially in the Tampa region, we get summer storms. Now, the summer storms could be like right now, looking out the studio window, we got absolutely beautiful blue skies, not a cloud in the sky or anything else. 10 minutes from now, almost like Missouri, the weather can change, meaning that it could just, poof and be gone. And we can get a surge of rolling storms that come through. Anything could happen here. So there was a delayed start in the men's game later on that evening. I believe they didn't start till about 8 p.m. But going over the women's game here, which again is a 4-0 win against FGCU. And I'm going to bring up some stats. I want to see how impressive it is to some folks. Me, I'm just saying, ESPN folks want to talk about it because this team right now has been doing very, very well, at least for what I can see. Not only the stats, but the standings as well. Looking at last week's game, which I want to go over. So we'll find out here. Anyways, getting back here to USF, the women's soccer team, the scoring summary at 47-30. This was in the first half of the match. Sadie Eckenberg, assisted by Anna Sutter, their goal, the first one for the match, which made it 1-0 going into the half. And USF women's soccer team, 2 matches in a row here where they've pretty much put on I guess I really don't want to call it an onslaught, but a majority of their goals have come in the second half. Let's not forget too that we had the very first game, Coach Rana talked about it during the show last week, was that he wanted a challenge for this team, and a challenge it was as the national team came in, the defending national champs. FSU came in and ended up winning that game 5-1. And then since then, the turnaround for the Bulls have been pretty much incredible. 5-0, has been pretty much incredible there. But the first goal of the game came by Sadie Eckenberg, assisted again by Anna Sutter, who later on scored in the game as well. That was at the 47-30 minute. Also on the second half of the match. As I just mentioned, Anna Sutter, assisted by Michaela Hill, and Ava Reitmeier. And the goal came in at 72-47. Then, as they seemed to be helping out one another here on the pitch, and obviously on the match, then Michaela Hill, assisted by Georgia Brown, she got her goal, her second of the season. By the way, that was Sadie's first goal of the season. It was assisted by Fatah. And then at 78-50, Sarita Thurton, her first goal of the season. If you guys have not been to any of the matches yet out there at Corbett Stadium, Sarita Thurton, just like the other ladies that are on this team right here, has been all over the pitch. And she finally got her first goal of the season. She was assisted by Malika Hill and Mia Fairchild. And that was in the 78th minute of the match. Now, in the team stats, as we'll go over this briefly as well, FGCU in the first half had 3 shots. Second half, they had 2. Now, altogether, total was 8. For USF, it was 10 in the first half of the match, which ended up getting the 1 goal. And then the 3 other goals came with 15 shots for USF in the second half of the match. 25 goals altogether, 4 goals out of it for the saves. And again, goalkeeper Galak, 2 clean sheets now back to back here. But she had 7 saves or 11 saves altogether, 7 in the first, 4 in the second. For FGCU, they had 7 goals, 7 saves. Boy, am I going to get this straightened out. 7 saves, 4 saves in the second half, 11 altogether here. And the young lady who came from Tampa, who had pretty much a shutout going until the first goal, and then she gave up 3 additional goals here in the second half. For Galak, it was no goals whatsoever, or she had 0 saves in the first because it was all USF on the attack on the first half of the match, and then 1 in the second. There was a couple of corner kicks attempts by FGCU, which was 2, by USF 5, and then 8 fouls apiece, 4 in the first half of the match for both FGCU along with USF. 8 in total, 2 cautions, 2 yellow cards, 1 in the 38th minute and 1 second by FGCU Kaufman. And then 10 seconds later by USF's number 10, also Fatah. 2 yellow cards, no one ejected. Thankfully, no prevalent injuries in this game. And because of the heat, they were able to remain hydrated and stay well for the match as well. Now, they travel out to Kansas for their game on Thursday night. Now, this team has gone on now to win 3 straight, 3-1, after, like we said, the very first match they lost. Tough game against the Seminoles, which seemed like it gave them the confidence right now because Chris Brown and crew here are riding a pretty good high. But as Chris Brown had mentioned, Coach Brown had mentioned to me that when I asked him how does it look like for the ladies, like once the match is over, how long do they take to celebrate? And he says, he gathers them up. As soon as the game is over, they do a quick celebration. After that, they move on to the very next game, meaning that as soon as that's over, and if you guys have been there again at Corbett Stadium, they do some stretches out in the field before they head to the locker room. And then, of course, the very next day, they're out there back on the practice pitch to make sure they can get their game straight and their game faces on, match day faces on. So they are traveling out to Kansas, but in particular here for South Florida, the goals have been 14 goals after giving up 5. Kind of think about that one there. 14 goals for this USF team, and it's early on. A conference game hasn't been played yet. That's coming up here next month, their first conference game. But so far, 14 shots, 3.5 goals per game. They've only given up a goal and a half, in the last 4. 95 shots in total, 23.5 or 23.8 shots per game. Again, penalties, only 2 of them. And the assists have been 21, 8 saves, 40 fouls, which again is expected between offsides and such. Corner kicks have been 26, which they've yet to make a corner kick goal so far. But this team early on this season has been doing exceptionally well. Again, they take on Kansas, a good crowd on hand. And I will tell you here as I flip back to the schedule, so you guys know exactly what's coming up here. Again, the first loss was back on August 15th. That was against Florida State, where they were shut out 5-0. Since then, they've gone on to beat Jacksonville 5-1, shutout against Southern 5-0, and then against FGCU 4-0. Again, the blank sheets by goalkeeper Galak. And then now to Kansas. That is tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. You guys can watch that on ESPN+. I believe you can also hear it on the USF radio. And then they're back because it's a quick road trip. Then they're back September 5th, Thursday night, 7 o'clock against UCF. First conference game, again, September 5th. And then travel again to Charlotte on September 12th. And then they're home for 2 back-to-back games to finish up just about the month of September, where they will finish up and travel to FAU out on September 26th, and then home against Memphis September 29th. So early on, this team is looking really, really well. I wanted to bring up, too, if I have, let me see if I can go back to what was pointed out here. In an article here on the Bulls page, the Bulls, let's go back. Yep. The Bulls scored 4 or more goals in 3 straight matches, a 5-1 victory over Jacksonville, 5-0, as I just mentioned, 5-0, winning against Southern, 4-0 victory against FGCU. It is just the 3rd time in program history, and the first since 2010 season, when South Florida scored 4 in matches against North Florida, Murray State, and Southeast Missouri State. USF scored 5 goals in 3 consecutive matches during the 1998 season against FIU, FAU, and Jacksonville. Now, earlier on, too, there was some Defensive Player of the Week awards and also the honor roll. Georgia Brown was named the American Athletic Conference Defensive Player of the Week, and Anna Sutter earned a spot on the weekly honor roll. So this team, if you guys have not gone out there and have yet to go and watch a match, I would say to go out to Corbett Stadium when they're back home, support this team, because this team is just right now, early on, will be making a tournament appearance. Dylan says first conference game is Charlotte. USF is in Sun Belt. That's true. My apologies. That is absolutely correct. Thank you, Dylan, for that correction. He is correct. That first conference game is against Charlotte. I was a week ahead of myself, so my apologies for that one. I want to make sure I get that straight. So thank you, Dylan, for that one as well. This team, like I said early on, they're looking really, really good. Really good. I know they wanted to share responsibilities between the 2 goalkeepers, but because of Lier Arak Galak, she is right now the starting goalkeeper, but not to say they're not going to be swapping out the goalkeepers. Early on, I know, or later on during the match here on Sunday, there were some position players that were taken out because again, they want to make sure that the athletes are not overheating. They want to make sure they stay hydrated, and more importantly, make sure they're not cramping or to bar any injuries. But it was a hot one on Sunday. I believe on the pitch was about 97 to 99 degrees, at least, and it felt like, because of the heat index, probably about 112 out there on the pitch. Very hot, even though on record it showed it was 93 degrees at the start of the match. So if you guys go out to Corbett Stadium, of course, there's minimal shade, so bring an umbrella like a lot of the fans did that were out in the stands. Make sure you also stay hydrated, more importantly, and again, support this team. There's tickets available. You guys can go to gousfbulls.com and go over to the women's soccer team, pick up your tickets, and let's sell out the next home game, because I'm pretty sure the ladies would really appreciate it. So USF on a roll right now, since losing, have gone on to win, and especially more importantly, 2 back-to-back shutouts here with FGCU last week. Now, there is a related video, and I want to see if I can bring it up without... And I'll bring it up here. This is Coach Brown. This is about 1:23, and of course now it disappeared. This is the way it's been working today. I don't know why and what's going on, but we'll find out. So let me bring up my screen here so you guys can hear from Coach Brown, and it goes away again. What is going on with the broadcast this morning? And this is driving me insane. All right, let's see if I can do it this way. Okay, all right. Well, I'm not going to bring it up. I've been trying now. I clicked it on 3 times. For some reason, it's going away. Something is going on. Apparently, I can hear some movement going on outside. So hopefully, again, you guys can still see and hear the broadcast. If not, I may have to end the video portion of the broadcast and just go with radio only because I don't know exactly what's going on. But I know there was some maintenance going on in the area, and so I'm trying to bring things up here on the screen. I wanted you guys to hear from Coach Brown. Maybe after the break, I could bring it up, and you guys will be able to hear it. But we shall see. Anyways, we're going to go into the first break here. You guys are listening to Martinez & Company. Sorry if I'm all over the place this morning as for whatever odd reason. And again, if you guys don't know, I'm the one that runs everything here. When Pete and I co-host in the morning with the Pete Shepard Show. But then when it comes to my show alone, I do everything behind the scenes, videos, anything else that comes up. So unfortunately, because I am a one-man operation here, I've got to try and figure out exactly what in the world's going on here and what's going wrong. So we'll take a break. Hopefully I can bring up Coach Brown's video before I move on to the next thing. And of course, Duncan Dad will join me here at the bottom of the hour. So my apologies if things are not the way they should be here this morning. So I don't want to sound like I'm unprofessional. I just want to make sure everybody understands that sometimes there's things that go beyond your control, and hopefully I'll get a little bit better here. In case you guys didn't miss it, I'm going to bring back the Mia O'Brien, who's with 1010XL, also covers the Jacksonville Jaguars. You guys will listen to her and the cuts that were made by the Jacksonville Jaguars. She'll come up, and then later on, I'll bring up Rick Horrow and his take out there at Fenway Park as he is still up in the New England area. So we're going to take a short break here. We'll be back. You are listening to Martinez & Company on the Coastal Sports Network.
Coming at you live from the Miller Electric Center on roster cutdown day. We just wrapped up speaking with Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke. Biggest highlights as the Jaguars trim their roster down to 53. We begin with the decision to trade the veteran pass rusher Trevis Gipson to the Seattle Seahawks on Monday. Trent Baalke said that multiple teams inquired about Gipson, and the Jaguars felt encouraged from what they've seen from 7th-round rookie Miles Cole so far. He also noted it's kind of hard to find 6'6", 280 pounds, and runs a 4.6 like Cole offers. The Jaguars also clarified with regards to 2 players and the waiving of them yesterday. We'll begin with Patrick Murtaugh, the Australian International Pathway Program player, suffered a season-ending injury. The Jaguars have waived him injured. If he clears waivers, he will revert to season-ending IR and will rehab here in Jacksonville. It does open up a spot in the International Pathway Program. Additionally, C.J. Beathard suffered a groin injury in the second preseason game. According to Trent Baalke, he would have missed at least the first 4 weeks of the regular season. Now the Jaguars are in an interesting situation where they would not be eligible to re-sign the backup quarterback for 7 weeks. Another team could step in, but of course, Beathard also rehabbing his way back from that significant injury. And finally, the team did part ways with longtime Jaguar Tyler Shatley. Both Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke very complimentary of the veteran offensive lineman, and Trent noted, he told Tyler as he shook his hand, never say never. This might not be the end of Tyler Shatley here in Jacksonville. That's it from the Miller Electric Center. The Jags are back on the practice field tomorrow and Thursday before they get the weekend off ahead of Week 1.
Mia O'Brien.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
What's up, Southwest Florida? Jimmy the Beef Guy here. Fort Myers, we answered your call. We're pumped to announce the opening of our second location. It's on 41 just north of the Edison Mall. And guys, nothing's changed here. The beef, the sausage, the breaded steak, our Maxwell Polish. Now serving you in 2 locations, Fort Myers and Bonita Springs. And don't forget, if you're having a party, check out our catering menu. Hey guys, when you're at the counter, don't call it gardenia. It's pronounced Jardiniere.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey. Why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, class. Let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all of these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
You bring the energy, he'll do the rest. Martinez and Company, powered by Sports Radio 102.9 The Game.
You're going to hear it right here.
The show starts now.
All right, welcome back. Martinez coming here live from 10 to 12, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you guys heard a pause in between the commercial break because, as I mentioned, there was something freaking going on outside. I had to reboot everything And Duncan, Dad, you know about this stuff when you just want things to go smooth, right? Just like being on the boat and that glass water that you get every once in a while. You wanted to go smooth, and then it just, nope, not today. The boat decided it just wanted to just keep chopping.
You get chopped from out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's like you got dolphins running up next to you, the manatees are coming by, and you're like, I just wanted to float. Yeah, here, just enjoy the water. Never happens. Never happens.
No.
The best laid plans, right? That's what they say. The best laid plans.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but it's okay. You know, we reboot. We do things around here to make it work. And if you guys want to call or text into the show, you can do so at 727-858-6650, 727-858-6650. Thank you all who listen in overseas, especially out there are men and women who listen in, and we appreciate you guys, not only for your service to our country, number one. Number two, also for tuning in and listening here to the live show on the Digital Sports app. Don't forget, you can download it directly from SR1029thegame.com. And we do appreciate everyone who listens here stateside. And as you guys heard me mention about this morning out there in Saskatoon, our friends to the north in Canada, as they are listening in. So, Duncan, Dad, it's been a minute since you and I have gotten together, but how are things? And more importantly, first of all, let me just say, between the pictures that you guys had out there in Paris, beyond jealous, because it looked like you guys had such an awesome time, you and your lady Levon.
Yes, that's exactly right. It was completely impromptu. We were sitting around just before my birthday at the end of June, and we said, let's just look for something. She'd finished school early, and we got a phenomenal deal. I think I told you off the air in text what it was, and we just booked it. And then it hit me about 2 weeks later when I started seeing all the advertisements on, that little animal channel. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to be there for like the ending of the Olympics. And from that point, my brain just started spinning. My sports brain went out of control. All the countries, all of the patriotism was just like, oh my gosh, like here it is. And actually being able to see it in person from a gambit of all of these other countries, it was so phenomenal. So phenomenal.
Now, I heard some people had mentioned, I know Rick Harrell was out there for a little bit. He said it's most of the transportation that actually end up being pretty good. Then there was some people that shared out there on social media, and we don't know unless you're out there. I mean, I can only say so much being down here in Florida, but I know for some people said they absolutely thought that they did a terrific job as far as transportation, getting everybody around. And I think it might have been far and few between. I know the very first day there was an incident at one of the train stations, but it seemed like after that it was all smooth sailing.
Yeah, I think the first day they had a little power overload on the grid, shut down for a second, but they rebounded phenomenally. And they cleared out a lot of the major thoroughfares and opened it up to some local traffic, but most of it were taxis or Ubers. And they had little transport vans that kept flying by, and all of a sudden you'd hear the local policia or whatever they call them in France, and their bells and whistles. After 2 or 3 times going by, I stepped down and said, I need to look at these vans. I said, because I have a theory. And sure enough, on the back little part of the van, they had an emblem, and it would be the athlete transport from their team houses to their event. So they were getting, their police escort all around, but just a really, really efficient way to move, number one, the athletes in a city that's so spread out like Paris. But the metro system, hats off, a million bows. It is phenomenal. Once you figure out the east and west side of their trains and where it's going, it is so simple to get around. Unlike Rome, that's just like a bunch of spaghetti. You just gotta find where you're going.
No, but listen, I know from, again, I saw videos of everybody kind of moving around. The nightlife seemed to be pretty good and it didn't show too much of it, which I think is, if you're going to show somewhere, especially like France, on Paris, where everybody knows that they have been out there to have a good nightlife, not anything as crazy as remote as it is sometimes here, depending on where you go in the States, but the food, from what I understand, is absolutely excellent. You guys, I think, shared a couple of them my way. And it makes you salivate. And I think that because of the time change where you guys were having the breakfast versus for us here for a dinner time, it was good. But I mean, overall, plus the room where you guys ended up getting, the place where you ended up staying was within sight of the Eiffel Tower. So that had to be absolutely stunning at nighttime.
I was hesitant because I had initially thought, since we were leaving in a few days to go to Italy, that it'd be better to stay a little more centrally located towards the airport area. Once I was, my arm was twisted a little bit, and I was like, no, okay, we just, pick a spot, and we found this amazing Airbnb loft on the sixth or seventh floor, and it directly faced west because we sort of stayed like in the northeast corner. But the length between things is very confusing when you look at it on a map and then you put it in reality and perspective. And you're right, we could see Notre Dame, we could see the Montemart Cathedral, we could see the Eiffel Tower, and in the evening time, you were able to position yourself to actually see the Olympic flame when they lifted it on their little hot air balloon. The first night I was like, what is that thing glowing? What is this thing floating around over here? And then picked up the paper, turned on the news, come to find out that they were actually lifting and elevating the flame ring each night to a homage to the inventors of the hot air balloon. But food was amazing, ambiance was amazing, and I initially went in thinking, I'm more Italy, right? Paris was such a wonderful change of pace. Italy, they slow down. Spain slows down. Paris, it was just as chill as you could possibly get. And every single person there was inviting. Nobody was forceful. I'll tell you a story about Italy. Like, nobody was forceful. Nobody was in your business. We almost had to ask the servers for our checks so we can move on to our next thing because they would let you sit there for hours.
See, that's nice. There's some places you go to where they're quick to rush you, especially like in the city.
Yeah.
And once you're done with your meal, it just seems like the check is here. Like basically they're telling you, here's a check, hurry up, get out. We got to get the table ready for the next person.
And I will commend them a little bit too on the fact that they had a good nightlife, but I think the Europeans, particularly the Parisians, they really enjoy their later dinner and their later bit of cocktails or aperitifs or coffees. Everything around 12:30, 1 o'clock was all shutting down. There was no late night 2 a.m. raging parties like you're running around Vegas or Phoenix or LA. Like, LA's got a lot to do, but it was such a nice environment that was created. Now, sure, there's the talks about how they pushed everybody out to the sides and all that, but we ventured out into those areas, and aside from like a densely populated little area, for myself, it was like taking a walk through Philly. So I didn't feel anything strange. I was like, oh, okay. Here's this store and that store and this person, that person. Don't bother anybody. Nod your head, keep going. You'll be fine. And it wasn't as if people were put off in that area where they had been sort of, kind of pushed out. Because let's be honest, they wanted to make a better impression of everything that's going on. And I'm sure Los Angeles will do the same thing. It happens anytime you move an event to these big metropolitan areas. That being said, I would go back this afternoon if I had a ticket.
Yeah, it's nice. Now, as far as LA,
Mm-hmm.
we see what's happening now out there. You talk about if you're going to clean up an area,
Mm-hmm.
that is going to be almost virtually impossible. They will, because it all depends on who comes into town. And then they make it seem like nothing to see here, blah, blah, blah. Listen, California, not for nothing, your governor, he's got a lot of freaking work to do, including the person that's currently the vice who's trying to become president of the United States here. But there's going to have to be a ton of cleanup because LA right now is beyond a super hot mess.
A little athlete insight. We had the pleasure of flying back with a couple of medalists and actually speaking to one of the guys who ran the marathon. He finished 8th. Mance is his last name, Chase Mance. And he kind of said, sort of off the record, he was like, LA has a lot to do. He said the way that Paris ran it, how efficient it was, obviously the environment, and in their little in-talks between themselves, they had already gotten information as to how Los Angeles was going to begin laying things out and moving things around and creating that space, which I love the proactivity from the Los Angeles committee, but at the same time, as you mentioned, there is a lot to do. Europe is very fortunate in the sense that they still hold true to, if you see someone in authority, they kind of put their head down and move away. You might get a little chatter, you might get a little kickback, and of course, there's always Murphy's Law and the random things that pop up. We've seen it, unfortunately, in Leeds, we've seen it in Cardiff, we've seen it, in parts of Paris. But for the most part, the general population that's there, they see the bells and whistles, and there's no reaction. That's where I feel we have a little bit of overcoming to do here, since we at times give a little too much overpowering to certain areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, but again, there's going to have to be a ton of cleanup when it comes out there. When it get out there to LA, I mean, we saw Snoop came home, I think, a day earlier as the events were closing up, so he can kind of pump up the dancers he had out there. It was kind of a weird setup, and I don't know if it was. I don't think obviously it was Snoop himself that kind of put that little thing together out there in LA. I think they should, because he had done such an excellent job covering the Olympics out there and having it's such a great time. And then if you were going to promote LA, and there's nothing wrong with Snoop doing so, it's just, I didn't understand kind of like how they put it together. Cause I would have thought they would have done a much better job, especially coming off of the way they did out in Paris. So listen, all I know is, and California, don't think I'm hating you guys, because I'm not hating whatsoever. I just want, so when it's time to stand out, you guys just shine the best you possibly can, because you're going to have to pick up that. I mean, that was a humongous torch by Paris. Wasn't a fan by any means of any of the opening ceremonies. I think that's for another time, another place, maybe another show. Right. I wasn't a huge fan of it. So hopefully the opening ceremonies will be a lot better out there in LA. But again, 4 years from now, who knows what the hell is going to happen here in the world. Hopefully everything will still be smooth and, stars and the bright sun and all that good happy horse stuff. I'll keep it as play as I possibly can. But it's going to be big shoes to fill from Paris here to LA.
I'll say one thing after the closing ceremony that I really appreciated from, I'll say, the French government, the Parisian government, Parisian Olympic Committee. They did a montage for about 35, 40 minutes, no lie. And it showed every aspect of their athletes in the game. It wasn't all about winning. It wasn't all about the medals. There were times where they flat out got smoked in an event, or they flat out lost and they fell, or they didn't complete their discipline. And in the full spirit of an Olympic Games in a competition, you're championing your athlete and you're highlighting their talents, but at the same time, you want to tell the entire story. I know a lot of times here in the States, all we want to see is the good, unless it's like a blooper or a folly.
Right.
But we don't want to see the athletes crying over failure. Oh, he was bawling his eyes up, blah, blah, blah. But when it's woven into this montage, when it's woven into this story, you really grasp the concept of, hey, all of these individuals that competed on this team all made a contribution, regardless if they won, if they lost, if they were disqualified, whatever it was. And not for anything, but it really, really, really stuck out that there was nothing else that they used to identify their athletes other than they were a French athlete. There was no mention to, hey, there's a certain blah, blah, blah on the medal stand. Hey, there's this person on the medal stand. It was like, no, this is French athlete Jacques. This is French athlete Emma. And it's like, yeah, exactly. That's like, you want to get past a lot of things, get past it. Like, it can be done. It can be done. And it was moving because you weren't distracted by all of these other sounds. You were there just really, really watching and appreciating these athletes performing their craft. You go to work, you have a bad day. You go to work, you have a great day. Sometimes you go to work and it's just mediocre. Other times you go to work and you get bamboozled. Other times you hit it out of the park. That's what you're acknowledging. Doesn't matter where you come from, what you do, what you look like, how you wear your hair, way you spell your name. And they were legitimate tears on these athletes' person when they made an achievement. Could have been a bronze medal. But they realized they're standing there in front of the entire world representing their country. And that's the one last little thing that is still hanging on with the Olympics, right? It is a form of patriotism to your country, but when you understand that you're representing something bigger than you, the name on the front of the jersey as opposed to the back of the jersey,
right?
That's moving, it's touching, and it's very inspiring, very inspiring.
No, it is. And one thing which I don't understand is you're talking about the athletes and how people represent their countries. Why is it? It's one of those things. Every 4 years, everybody is beyond proud of where they call home.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So for 2 weeks, everybody's holding hands. No one's talking crap about one another. I can't wait to visit your country because I hear about this, that, and the other. And then it just seems like the minute the curtain is closed, right, it's back to, this country sucks. You guys suck. I can't stand this. It's the funniest thing ever.
It was very telling. And it wasn't just the United States. There was other countries that did as well. And I know they have lives and they have careers in sports, they have time off. But personally, if I had ever found myself in that position, I don't think I could skip the opening or closing ceremony. There's a lot of people that got out of Dodge as soon as their things were done. For me, it's about finishing that job. And if you are the best at your craft and you are the best at your discipline, there's a lot of people that I personally think, yeah, you should have stuck around. You should have stuck around to see this out all the way. No one likes to sit up there and listen to the commencement speech when you're getting ready to graduate because I'm done. Just give me my diploma. Let me get out of here. Move on with my life. But you need closure in that. You should walk away with it. And say what you want about BEG on the women's team. I really want to hope and truly believe that there was a moment of recognition when they put that medal around her neck where it was like, you know what? Even if for 15 infinitesimal seconds, it was like, yeah, guess what? I do live in the greatest country out there. I really do. And after that, dude, it could go away and you could be however you want to be. But all you're really looking for is one or two of those moments that resonate. Change life may not change your life, but in that little moment, I'm going to believe that a lot of things came full circle for that particular person. And guess what? That's a moment. And other people who see it, maybe that domino effect into someone else.
I hope so too, because I know she was very, listen,
Sure.
everybody, there isn't a person in this world that hasn't done anything to shoot themselves in the foot, in the mouth, whatever the case may be. And sometimes we express ourselves, right? And for those who don't know, if you're not from Philly, it's like the same way with the New Yorkers. When there's stuff that would just come out of our mouths, it'll just come out. And then if you're truly from the area, you're going to understand the difference between something that was said in passing, regardless of however it came out, and something that was actually meaningful, meaning that person meant exactly what came out their mouth. Now, I understand, she may not have thought about the moment when it happened to her, when she was out in Russia and what happened there, but you come back home and you see a different side. And then you go to the Olympics and you hope that, yes, that really resonated. Like, you know what? I may have taken a lot for granted. And I hope that maybe everybody understands now that, yeah, sure, I made a huge mistake, a bad error in judgment, but that I truly love and support and appreciate the country that I actually reside in, which is here in the United States. So we've seen many athletes, they've said and done the wrong things, but then they came around full circle.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope. That's all I hope. I
Just
just hope
hope.
that she does.
Just hope.
Yeah, that she does that. That she looks at it and understands that you can. Yes, you can make mistakes, but you also hope that you can come back and look better than you were beforehand. But as we now get away from here, from as far as the Olympics, and before we get into a little bit of the Eagles conversation, because again, it's now the road trip out to Brazil. It's going to be a tough match. I think for a lot of people, they think they're going to walk all over Green Bay. I hear the other media networks out there talking about that. Oh, the Eagles should run away with this, but we still have in our minds the visions of what we saw at the end of the final season last year. And I know a lot of people keep saying you need to kind of get over what happened last season. That's the last memory that we have. Now, preseason, again, it means absolutely nothing for anybody. It's like spring training in baseball. You can win 20 games, lose one before you come back home. That means absolutely nothing. It's with a product that's going to come out there against Green Bay. I am not 100% sold. And I know earlier Pete had on where someone, I think they asked 103 NFL athletes of who are what they believe in their opinion was the most overrated quarterbacks. Now, Josh Allen got number one with Buffalo, but tied for second was Jalen Hurts, saying he's an overrated quarterback. Now, I mentioned to Pete that he would have to go back to his freshman year in the NFL so we can see the product that was Jalen Hurts freshman year versus what we saw last season. Does this team, and I'm not even going to talk about as far as the playoffs, just come to the regular season, I'm wondering, is this team good enough at least to remain over 500 that we saw last season?
Well, you kind of nailed it out of the box. Potential doesn't always equate to performance without the persistency, the passion, and the players all buying in and all being on the same page, executing at the same time. Going into the season, let's be totally raw. You have a lot of talent on paper. They've been there before. Teams in the past have had a lot of talent on paper. You have 2 new coordinators, which means a new offense, a new defense. You have they don't want to say there's a power struggle. They don't want to say that there's a communication issue between the head coach and the quarterback. But the way that people answer questions, if you've been around athletes long enough and been around coaches long enough, when you sort of side a little question, redirect, you get a feeling as to how it's going to go. Talent-wise, very talented he is. Quarterbacking, from what I see, again, being extremely raw. You lose Jason Kelce. People are like, oh, yeah, Kelce, blah, blah, blah. He's the guy, blah, blah. But what Jason Kelce did for an offense, no matter who the coordinator was, sliding protections, calling out coverages, making adjustments on the line, I'm not saying that it can't be done. But if you lay that on Jalen Hurts, from my visual experience, eyes don't lie kind of thing, in today's day and age, you're going to put up a lot of numbers. You just are. We've just moved the kickoff all over the place. We really can't touch the receivers. There has to be more space. They're bigger, faster, stronger. So productivity a lot of time will show up in the stat, in the box score. Dak Prescott is an amazing statistical quarterback, but he's never gotten over that hump. He's a fantasy junkie. If you have a need for quarterback and he's available, go get him. Hurts being the worst or the second worst quarterback, I think you need to look at his, again, and I'm not questioning where he's at, but between the ears, sometimes the decision making, not going beyond his first read, trying to escape the pocket way too soon. There was a play that Drake May made against the Commanders, last Saturday night game that the Patriots had before going to the season. They played all their starters. Drake May came in. He got blitzed off the edge. Instead of freaking out, and instead of throwing away, instead of running all over the place, which he did escape and run before, he stepped up into the pocket, never took his eyes off the receiver. Collinsworth called it out on the air. Followed his receiver, knew he had somebody back there, stepped through and made the throw to the second level, not the first guy who was cutting across at the 7-yard box. He went 15 over. It's plays like that unfortunately I haven't seen Jalen Hurts make. And when he did make them, Frank Reich was the coordinator. Kelce was at his prime. And they ran a very... Reich wasn't the coordinator. I'm sorry. Steichen was. They ran a very simplified offense. It was step back, hit your first read. If he's not there, use your legs and go. You may get a dump on the side over there. I think a lot of times we overvalue individuals on their statistical performance versus their full-on productivity. Josh Allen, like he's a good quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He sees things. He makes plays with his legs. Is he on the same level as Mahomes? Probably not. Is he on the same level as a healthy Joe Burrow in a true quarterback sense? Probably not. But aside from those guys, you're going to get a lot of touchdowns. You're going to get a lot of turnovers. You're going to get a lot of yards. But wins matter. Wins at the end of the season matter. And yes, that collapse, not to completely run over here, but like that's very concerning because that's a mentality of a team. You come back into the locker room like, oh, here we go again. How's this going to go? And you're right. Green Bay, very, very well organized. They have a very good up-and-coming quarterback who, let's say this. I had an opportunity to draft those two players in my little fantasy thing that I was doing, which I haven't done in whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I took Jordan Love. I trust him more as a pure quarterback. I just do. And I trust his team more than I trust the talent on the Eagles. The Eagles are going to score points. The Eagles are going to, be in games. And I hope they're wrong, and I hope we win a Super Bowl, and I hope I, eat a bunch of crow. But what you showed me, those last 10 games where you just basically self-imploded, and now you cleaned house, and everything is new, you got to work some bugs out of the car when you first buy it.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
That's going to be the worst part because that's and again, I don't want Eagles fans to think that for some reason, number one, even if I have a Bucks mini helmet behind me, obviously because I'm down here in Tampa, but that's neither here nor freaking there. It's directly behind me here on the other side. But it's the feeling you can't forget. I don't care. We at the end of the year, we see the commercial with the NFL, right? They now Kansas City, for example, defending Super Bowl champions. Here they are, they buy your gear, whatever. What are you doing? You're going to Disney World, blah, blah. The next day, you see most of the time a commercial come out and say, well, we're all leaving. Yep. We all start out 0-0. So it's just, I do not want to see any kind of remembrance from last season. To me, it's just for the Eagles, and I don't believe right now they're favored by that much over Green Bay. And as we get closer, we'll see. I just don't see. And in my opinion, I don't see where they run away from Green Bay here next Friday night at 8:15 in Brazil. I think it's going to be a lot closer. You take a look at what Jordan Love from Green Bay did the last 3 to 4 games of the regular season and how he started. He caught a rhythm. They've been Dallas's daddy now for a couple seasons, even after Aaron Rodgers had been gone. So everybody thought, well, would they be able to beat Dallas if it came off their playoff game? And yeah, they were able to do so because, as you mentioned, Dak Prescott, Dak Prescott is like Andy Reid, what Andy Reid was to the Eagles. If there was such a thing as a division champion coach, that was Andy Reid. And you look at Dak Prescott, he's done the same thing with Dallas. And just for whatever odd reason, just can't get over. Now you bring back Zeke Elliott, which he looks like a mess. Not for nothing, Dallas fans, but I mean, we saw him during some of the workouts. He was struggling during a workout. But you bring him back. CeeDee Lamb gets paid. That's great for Dallas. I don't think they win a division, barring something crazy that's going wrong. I just don't want to see what we saw last season come into week 1 because I would imagine now, just being down here in Tampa, in Philly alone, what that phone calls, all those stations up there, it will be an endless get rid of Nick Sirianni, get rid of this person, get rid of that person. And even though Howie did well in the draft, there's a lot to be proven. Like I said, preseason means absolutely nothing to me. And I don't know what you think about the preseason.
The preseason, I think you're really looking at trying to establish familiarity with the schemes. There was a game that the Eagles played two games before, and I made a comment. Someone said they weren't really confident with the way things looked, blah, 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 blah. And I flat out said, I don't trust the schemes. I don't trust the confidence. I don't trust the efficiency and the execution of them. And somebody retorted and they said, well, they only gave up 159 yards and 11 first downs, blah, 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 blah. Well, number one, it's preseason. So if you're looking at the stats in preseason, not for anything, but I'm going to kind of discount what you're saying, right? Preseason, you're working out the kinks. Like you're trying to see how fluid this will be. You can't have outside cornerbacks stepping up and missing a tackle or underplaying a guy or not cutting the right way. Those are the things that need to be perfected. So when you get to the regular season and you're into October, November, December, it's second nature, right? It's this learned sort of behavior. And there's a feel for that, right? And when you look at some of these teams around the NFL, even though Kansas City has to start over, there's a feel. There are bona fide leaders on that team. If Mahomes says something, people listen. If Chris Jones says something, people will listen on the defense. If Andy Reid says something, people will listen. If Spags says something, people will listen. Why? Because it's been proven time and time and time and time again that if you do these little things consistently over and over, that will yield success. Here, you're hoping for that. One of the biggest reasons that the Eagles won their Super Bowl was Malcolm Jenkins. Malcolm Jenkins, he had the ear of everyone in that locker room. There was a reason how we brought him from New Orleans, where he had won a Super Bowl with the Saints, to Philadelphia. You look across the backside of this Eagles defense right now, Bradbury is just a car wreck right now, and he can do whatever he wants to do. More wish him all the success. CJ GJ, he's trying to be that guy, but he has a lot of I'm proving to you all about me instead of being that metronome in the back, right? There's not a trotter on this team. There is a trotter, but there's not an original X-Man who's lining up there on the second level screaming at people. There's not a Kelsey on this team who's directing that offense. Yo, Ertz, slide in. Yo, Lane, bump on the outside here. You need that. Football needs that. Baseball, you can build the chemistry. You have 162 games to do it. Basketball, you can have one or two talented guys. You're going to win 45, 50 games. Hockey, you need a hot goaltender in the playoffs, superstar, and a Robin. Football, though, you need one or two guys that everyone looks to. They need to look to that guy. Baseball, yeah, they see it a little bit in the clubhouse, blah, blah, blah. I get all that. Don't hurt me on baseball. But because of the finite schedule that football has, you really can't miss. Oh, well, certain teams start out 0-3 and blah, blah, blah. We're at like 17 games now. They're getting harder. People are bigger, faster, stronger. And the one thing that always happens in the NFL quicker than any other place is that the NFL changes, the NFL adapts. If you come out and you show me a one-trick pony over here, go ahead, buddy. Do it all day. That's why people have reservations sometimes about Tua in Miami. Dude, you can throw the ball around the field all day. You can throw it around all day. The minute I get some pressure on you, the minute I get in your face, the minute I knock you down, completely changed. Completely changed. You're a statistical junkie. They're probably going to win 10, 11 games this year.
Yep.
Happy, happy, happy. But guess what? Playing against a really good team in a playoff scenario where things slow down and you can't have stupid penalties. You can't make that little misthrow over the middle. You can't have that little tip ball because that tip ball is getting intercepted and then people will grind the clock out. Like every sport, when you get down to the nitty gritty, it always goes back to the fundamentals. And you can't establish the fundamentals without having somebody that you turn to that's holding you accountable for it. And everyone's like, oh, we're all accountable. Yeah, we're working out so hard. Go out with your helmet on, get hit a few times, and then come back. You could put on paper all day, man. You could play it on Madden 25, 26, whatever you want to do all day. You have to execute. And it's little repetitive things and having a voice that you can turn to. And say what you want. Eagles have a lot of really good players. I just don't see leaders. They keep talking him up as Hurts. Oh, he's a leader. They listen to him. They aspire to him, blah, 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 blah. The one problem I have with hurts. And I don't want to downplay him because I really like him as a quarterback for this particular team and offense, whatever. But you can carry yourself a certain way, right? You can sit there and think that, you are sort of above whatever, and you're holding yourself to a higher standard. And I don't want to talk about this. We're focused, and you get these really not half-hearted, but half-passionate answers. Guys that have done that in the past, looks great on paper, looks great in front of you, says the right thing, but don't try to be a Kobe Bryant. Don't try to be a Michael Jordan. Don't try to be throw me on the bus and hang me up with a stake here, people. But South Florida, don't try to be a Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow, not so much with the talent all the way around, but my goodness gracious, man was a leader. He was a leader. People would do anything for that guy. Anything for that dude. It comes back to my it thing. You either have it or you don't have it. You can't create it. You can't. You can get close, but you can't create it. As good as LeBron is, he doesn't have it like Michael. He doesn't have it like Kobe. He just doesn't. He just doesn't. There's nothing wrong with that. Statistical anomalies all over the place. Leading scorer, pass, hey, awesome, fantastic. You win a couple championships? Absolutely. But South Florida people, right? NASCAR. Richard Petty, he had it. Dale Earnhardt, he had it. Rusty Wallace, not so much. He won a championship, right? Davey Allison, championship, but he didn't really have it. Jimmy Johnson, he kind of had it, right? He had it because he had 7 too. But if you line them up against those other guys, you're taking the king, you're taking the intimidator every day.
Yeah, you are. Give me 1 second here. This is when sometimes things go live and you have to kind of step away from the mic here. But with that, we're going to take a quick break here because someone's about to approach the door here.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, I got to pull the double duties. But you guys are listening to Martinez Company. We'll be right back right after this.
Sports Professor Rick Horrow into the $1.3 trillion business of sports. Right behind me, venerable Fenway Park. One of the reasons why the Red Sox are third in value, according to Sportico and others, Major League Baseball. About $4.5 billion, but nobody's going to sell them now, or certainly in the foreseeable future. Up about 15% year over year. The average franchise, about $2.3 billion, up about 12%. So they're right up there at the top and continue to rise. One of the reasons, obviously, television revenue on the local side, about 23% of all revenue. And the Red Sox have been mired in, let's say, a slump. Haven't made the playoff 4 of the last 5 years. People are packing in. The wild card event has caused a renaissance. Nobody expected the Red Sox to be this hot, this late, and continuing to drive revenue. Let me go in and check it out. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, Sports News Minute.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Andersen windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Andersen windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
What's up, Southwest Florida? Jim and the Beef Guy here. Fort Myers, we answered your call. We're pumped to announce the opening of our second location. It's on 41 just north of the Edison Mall. And guys, nothing's changed here. The beef, the sausage, the breaded steak, our Maxwell Polish. Now serving you in 2 locations, Fort Myers and Bonita Springs. And don't forget, if you're having a party, check out our catering menu.
Hey guys, when you're at the counter, don't call it gardenia. It's pronounced Jardiniere.
Just follow us on the socials. Call or text the show 727-858-6650 and let us know what's on your mind. Now back to Martinez and Company.
All right, welcome back. As this broadcast has been a little bit squirrely today, but no big deal because again, things happened for some reason at the very beginning of it. Before Duncan Dad came on, things were just going haywire, so it's okay. We just bounce back, recover, keep things moving. fumble the ball, but we pick it back up and run it down the field. So no huge biggie whatsoever. You're listening to Martinez coming here live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the Coastal Sports Network, brought to you by Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. Don't forget, you can visit the website sr1029thegame.com. You can call or text into the show at 727-858-6650, 727-858-6650, and make your comments on the social medias, as we do appreciate everyone who listens in here stateside, overseas, around the world. We do appreciate everyone. And for those who didn't know, if you missed it on Pete Shepard Show, almost every county here in Florida is now listening into Southwest Florida's newest game in town. So we're pretty proud of what we've been doing here. And thanks to everybody who visited the website. We do appreciate, especially checking out the USF and the Tampa Bay Sun Football Club content that's out there on the website as well. So lots of stuff that we're covering here. Pretty soon, lacrosse coming up here for USF. Men's, women's basketball is coming up. So there's a lot happening this season, not only at USF, but here for Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. That's why we always ask. Download the app, therefore you guys can always stay tuned to what's going on here on the show. Now, I want to talk a little bit here, Duncan, as we talked about the Eagles and kind of keeping it somewhat there as our retired Eagle, Jason Kelce, now moves on to ESPN, right? Congratulations to him.
Congratulations.
Although I would have been super insulted, I believe, and I thought maybe it was going to happen. Maybe his brother was going to talk to him to come over to KC, because you almost kind of felt it, because if you looked at Jason celebrating with Travis at the Super Bowl party, especially at the Super Bowl, it was like, man, is he going to retire as an Eagle and then decide he wants to go to KC, get one more ring before he really goes away? But it didn't happen. ESPN picks him up. But I'm bringing this up because if everybody remembers it, I'm going to bring up also the Pat McAfee video that's coming up here with Jerry Jones as what he said on the field yesterday. Jason and Travis are like Pat McAfee, meaning that when Pat he had a monstrous contract. If he would have stayed on YouTube, he would have made more money than we did with ESPN. But decided to go to ESPN. They worked it out where he pays the fines up front to the FCC when they curse on TV. So, a lot of people wonder, how does he get away with this? Because he's paying the fines in advance. So even if they don't curse, let's say when he goes live today, which he's on live, if I remember correctly now, when he goes live, even if they don't say not one curse word, they've already paid for it in advance. And it's not like the FCC saying, oh, you guys didn't curse today, here's $4,000 back. Nope, they just take the money because they know what's coming. But he's as raw as he is, and anyone can possibly end up getting. But the reason why I mentioned it, because now Jason and Travis Kelce just signed a massive podcast deal with Amazon for $100 million. And for those who haven't checked out the New Heights podcast, and it's fun. I'll admit it. It's a lot of fun listening to their brothers going back and forth. The guests they've had on now have decided to send and sign this nice deal with Amazon. And I know, you get people that they say, oh, if you're an influencer, you can do this, that, and the other. Let's not forget too, folks, influencers have a shelf life, right? Because when one comes in, one learns what that one does and they do something a little bit differently. Versus when you're trying to create something in the media, it's a lot harder. It takes a lot longer. And God bless these two. Maybe the names, it's different. If Duncan, Dad, and I decided to spin off and do something completely different, it would take us time to build, but eventually we'd end up getting there. But for the two brothers, $100 million for New Heights, that's a nice scratch taken away from what they've already done in the field.
It really is phenomenal how you can parlay careers nowadays into this next level. A lot of athletes in the past used to go into acting because they were already larger than life, right? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did it. Will Chamberlain did it. A lot of baseball players find themselves in movies, reoccurring roles on shows, because they are an anomaly when it comes to physical stature and presence a lot of times, or they're just very charismatic, right? I mean, Tom Brady, he could have broadcast for wherever, but if you give Tom Brady a script and tell him to perform, he could probably go toe-to-toe with a lot of actors. He just has this charisma, this presence about him. But these two guys, I was always impressed with the fact that they were able to do this while both of them were playing in season. Having that rapport, first of all, with your brother is something I'm kind of jealous with and jealous of. It's so symbiotic. It's just one and the other funny. But like all things, as you mentioned, there is a shelf life for this. Who knows what's going to happen with, T Swift and Kelsey going forward, if they want to start a family, how that's going to change that dynamic. Jason's kids are getting older. I know they've been really present in this particular area, in the South Jersey area, over the summer. A couple foundations, walks, bike rides. They really embody this area. So it'll have a good run. And then eventually life will run its course and things will move on. But $100 and some million, goodness gracious, it's amazing sort of funny money. But you find out now that people have earned, you can maximize more of yourself outside of a lot of times what your actual job is.
Right.
I was one of the players in California last year. I think he posted his game check. And the game check was like $495,000. By the time they took the taxes, the league fees, I think he cleared $115 or something like that. It was crazy. But you see these astronomical numbers, like, oh, I'm getting CeeDee Lamb's getting paid $115 million over 4 years. Is he really getting paid $115 million? Probably not. Probably not. Now, wasn't sold, didn't drink the Kool-Aid on the Caleb Williams thing, but if all of you stat analytic guys out there want to go have fun fodder for the afternoon, look up Caleb Williams' contract and how it's structured. He structured it through, just briefly, an LLC where they'll pay the LLC instead of him directly, which avoids a whole bunch of tax implications. He can roll stuff over, compound interest on it, and then when he's ready, he gets to take it. Same thing with Ohtani.
Yep.
Greatest fleece I think I have ever seen. He's betting on himself that he's going to live and he's going to perform with this, but my goodness. Short of the Bobby Bonilla contract, I'll take a couple $1 billion after my 15-year MLB career. Just let it roll. Let it roll, man. Let it roll. Keep on.
No, it's ridiculous. I mean, Ohtani, I know a lot of people were saying, like, I can't believe that actually happened the way he did it, but it is smart. Because in the end, you may not get exactly what the contract states, but you're going to get a massive chunk of it versus the way a lot of athletes do it now. And it's the same way, too. Like, I mean, you have, I'm not an influencer by any means whatsoever. I think everybody knows that. I don't ever see myself getting into that realm because first of all, I'm not as young as a lot of these influencers.
Don't be modest, man. Don't be modest.
No, listen, are you kidding me? I never in my lifetime. It'd be cool for a moment, but
you're the Spanish play-by-play announcer for a professional league. You should be the next Richie Rodriguez.
That'd be nice.
That'd be nice, man.
It would be nice. I'll be
back.
back.
You have to call in the Bucks games next year.
Yeah, that would be something.
Raymond Jack Stadium. Yes, Angel Martinez.
It was a great time with Orlando. Granted, the EFL, it'll be a lot better come next year. This year was that was a hot mess. I felt bad for a lot of the owners from the EFL because I can't speak on behalf of what the mess that it turned out to be, but Chris Chetty, everybody who's taking over now, this will be an actual league come next year. I know a lot of folks don't like to see that way. I still have all their info up on my website as well because being attached with the Orlando Predators, but it's no different than John Chaney. I mean, he lost a slew of money this season because you're paying a handsome amount of money over to in Orlando when you're playing at the Kia Center. And it's not like the Kia Center is going to turn around and say, oh, I'm sorry, what happened? Is that my fault? No, that's not my fault. Let's see what we're not going to do now. And so it sucked for the AFL. They didn't make what they wanted, but in the end, I mean, they were able at least to get the AFL championship off. They did it out in New Jersey, something which they end up saving, truthfully, a boatload of money because it was supposed to be in Minnesota. But because of the teams and the amount of money they lost, they tried to figure out a simple solution at the very end of it and say, you know what? Let's not overspend for something you guys have taken because every team took a loss and we saw how many teams end up folding. It will get better. The AFL will get a lot better. I can't wait to be back with the Orlando Predators come next year, which they still put a lot of stuff out there on social media. But no, it was fun. It was fun doing it for sure. And who knows if it'll lead into something here locally where I'm able to do a Spanish broadcast for one of the teams around here. I don't know. Maybe next year, maybe with USF. Who knows? But it's fun. The only thing where people have to realize is because I've done broadcasts before, obviously in the English language, American language. When you're doing it in Spanish, you have to remember as you're flowing through it and you're thinking about it in your head and how it wants to come out. The fortunate part was for me with the Predators was that when I started the second to last game, I mentioned to the co-host that was with me, I said, here's the way we're going to do it to keep everybody engaged because we got a lot of people end up watching. We'll start out with the Spanish version of it, insert the American language into it, and then kind of keep flip-flopping back and forth. And it turned out to be an absolutely fantastic thing, especially the very last game of the season.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the Predators didn't get to as far as they wanted to, but again, next year they'll be back there. So that'll be great. But getting back to as far as the Kelce's, because again, we talked about these social media influencers and stuff. Listen, God bless them, because I've seen it. We watched that one show, that $1 Million Listings out of from Bravo.
Right.
And then another one, which was Sirhan, who the guy who was originally with the show, then went off and did his own thing. There was a social media influencer that showed up at his apartment, and it was going, now, in New York, it's different like Philly. Philly, you get, what was down by close to 5th and Market, I forget, right behind it. It was that brand new building where it had the garage pulls up your car to your place. Then there was a fight between, I think, like 2 doctors, and they paid like $22 million for the penthouse.
Mm-hmm.
In New York, the size of a room, you pay $20 million freaking dollars. And this guy showed up, social media influencers, like, yeah, I'm looking for a new place, this, that, and the other. Now, again, hopefully he does the right thing, because again, it is a short shelf life. A lot of them know it, but a lot of them have gone off and spun in a different direction where they've kept their networking type going.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully the Kelce brothers, we'll see, because their podcast, they do a good job, $100 million, which then brings me to Pat McAfee, where he would have gotten, in my opinion, twice the amount what ESPN offered him. The only difference is, obviously, it is a nationwide audience and obviously overseas as well. So it's, I can understand that's great. Just like us, no different here, where we have our broadcast goes all around the world. Difference is I'm not getting ESPN money, and I'm also not getting ESPN coverage. But like everything else, it'll take its time. Now, with that also being said, I wanted to bring up, and as long as I still have it, because again, things went a little bit sideways this morning when I was looking stuff up. They talked about Jerry Jones, and I don't get Jerry Jones, his whole situation with because he's losing a ton of Cowboys fans. Granted, he'll still fill up his $1 billion stadium, don't get me wrong. But the comments that he made yesterday, and I got to find it all over again, because I want to bring it back, as Pat had mentioned on his show, along with Adam Schefter, who was on there as well. And of course, now I got to scroll around like a madman. But Jerry Jones, he just, I don't understand what he does with Dallas. He keeps putting his foot in his mouth. The whole situation with Dak Prescott, that didn't look good. And then he lays out the reason why he's going to remain the GM and the only GM that Dallas will ever end up having, at least until his dying breath. I want to see if I can, as I'm trying to kill a little bit of time, I know they talked about CeeDee Lamb, but I'm trying to get it where the comments, as it was mentioned on the show, good Lord, the only problem was when I had to reset everything, it was lost here.
Well, while you're looking for that, I'll give my little commentary on Jerry Jones. There's individuals in sport, and there's individuals in industry and business and in corporate America that they're unwilling to pass the torch and ride off into the sunset unless they're really forced to do it. Unfortunately, what happens is that even if you acquiesce to a few of these requests, a few of these changes, when you're not 100% committed to it, and you're the one that's really pulling the strings at the top, or you're in a relationship, you're not 100% committed to it, and you're kind of just, say, half button it, but you don't yield a good result. You don't yield a good product. You create internal strife, internal conflict. You create this sometimes power struggles amongst the individuals who should really be on the same page with you, who you are paying, handsomely. But some people just need to get out of their way and be okay with it. He if he won one more championship, I'm sure he would be satisfied. But he has a Hall of Fame owner track record. But just be secure with, okay, I'm done with this. I'm going to pass this on. Some new blood's going to come into town. We're going to take this over. When Jeffrey Lurie put up a portion of the Eagles to sort of be for sale, like a minority ownership in it, people are like, oh, what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. But even Jeffrey Lurie, for as good as he is, he's understanding that eventually this torch has to be passed.
Right.
And I can't do this forever. I want to enjoy some of this. So, it's a people thing, right? It's a people thing. Well, let's see what Pat has to say.
Yeah, this was yesterday. For those who are tuning in, actually Tuesday show today is Monday show. As they talked about the Jerry Jones situation, what he had said apparently during the presser on Sunday. And again, for those with sensitive hearing, because here on Martinez and Company, the same way the Coastal Sports Network, we play things as it's stated. So if you do not like foul language, you can tune out for the next, I think, about minute and 11 seconds, and then come back if you like. But here is the raw audio from what was stated, and this is what they're going to read and what you guys are about to hear for those who are listening in on the Digital Sports app, is what Jerry Jones said on Sunday.
What did he say?
He said, look, no one can do what I do. I'm the best at what I fucking do.
That's his actual quote.
Yes.
We are not making this up. That was his actual quote.
In an interview.
I've done it all, so I have an inordinate amount of confidence that, if anybody can figure out how to get this shit done, I can figure out how to get it done, Jones said. I've been there every which way from Sunday, and I've busted my ass a bunch. And there's nobody living that's out cutting and shooting that can't give you a bunch of times they busted their ass. So hell no. There's nobody that could fucking come in here and do all the contracts and be a GM any better than I can.
Hey, you guys, you didn't write that for him, Pat? You didn't write that for him?
Not AI.
No.
We did not write that. That is true quote.
Fact.
That sounds straight out of the program. I'm just telling you.
Yes. Well, you should have seen how pumped we were whenever we heard it. We started doing a little hop. That's the way oh my God. I don't know if that just came in if Jerry thought he was off the record. He was certainly on the record. I don't know if that was with a full day hangout. Clarence Hill Jr., though, put it out there. And I wonder if that was about Bill Belichick. He'll be joining us next hour. Excited to get his kind of take on this.
Yeah, I think, but Jerry Jones, listen, I don't know how Dallas fans feel about it, but again, he talks about he wants to be the ultimate GM forever, blah, 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 but you've lost so much of your fan base. And then again, you bring up Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, even though he was taken care of. The mentality of Jerry Jones, I just don't get it, Duncan. I really don't.
When you have a good leader, a good corporate leader, many times they are seen but not heard. If you hear from them, it is usually a pretty straightforward conversation. We're doing this. We're not going to do that. Get your P's and Q's together, or, you could take a trip to HR.
Right.
A lot of times you don't really hear anything about Lamar Hunt's family, right? You don't hear anything about the Hunts. When the Rooneys were running everything in Pittsburgh, you didn't hear anything about the Rooneys. When Lurie is running stuff in Philly, he might give you his end of the year sort of wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
Show up for an event here and there. You'll see him in the press box, sure, but you don't hear them. They're not in front of microphones. For the little quip at a time that Kraft had all his stuff going on, you saw him in the box. He shook his head, he waved, he nodded his head, but he let the football people do the football job. He knew he was the financier. He knew he was the owner. He knew that the buck stopped on his desk. There are just some people that they need their hand in the cookie jar as you're baking the cookies. And that's just not going to change. And having prior success in an endeavor lends to that. Oh, well, I was involved when Jimmy was brought in, and we rebuilt a whole team, and we won 3 Super Bowls, and it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and team of the decade, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's good. That was 30 years ago. Like, I'm not harping on Dallas, but that was 30-some years ago. And the issue is that during that time that's passed, the 35 years that passed, you've had consistently good teams. You've had talent. But for some reason, somebody is not getting out of someone's way. And the only common denominator in this whole equation is that you've been there this whole time, hovering over everybody. Do this, don't do that, move here, move that. You'd be better off just, I don't know. I think he's long past the point where he should have passed the torch and walked away and enjoyed all the fruits of his labors. He'd be revered. He'd be absolutely revered. Had he walked away like 2005, after they had those Super Bowl runs and won their championship, and it's starting to fade off a little bit, you don't really see Les coming in. You're in that whole Tony Romo, who's the other guys that had them? Like just a mismatch of people after Aikman left, and it was like, yeah, this really isn't, this is not vibing. Not really feeling this. So guess what? It's time for me to just be the guy who's, grandfathered in on the board or something like that. If they need a deciding vote or something, go ahead and do that. Sit up in your box. Enjoy your team. But he just won't do that. And he's a businessman. He reaches out and he has everything in its brother down there in Jerry's World. There's a reason why they call it Jerry's World. Right? It's not called AT&T Stadium. It is, but it's Jerry's World.
It is. It is. It absolutely is. Listen, for Dallas fans, I know you guys, I know it drives you guys nuts when we talk about it all the time, where like the last time you guys wanted us, obviously when the VCR was around, you guys didn't even get the DVD portion on the society yet, on the digital. But, hey, listen, this is what you guys are dealing with. Unfortunately, with Jerry Jones and what he keeps doing. Mike McCarthy, to me, I think also another head coach that's going to be on a hot seat. And I could be absolutely wrong. You keep hearing about how Deion wants to leave when his son leaves, and who knows if you'll orchestrate like LeBron with Bronny to the Lakers, and take Deion Sanders and Shakur Sanders and bring him to Dallas, and now Deion becomes the head coach of Dallas. Who the hell knows? All I know is that Dallas don't expect much from your ownership this season, because you guys didn't do much. It's the first time in a long time, truthfully, that Dallas has not done well in the draft. And it's shown. You guys believe in the product you have in the field. And I can't even say on paper you guys are a playoff team, because you're not. Just, my opinion. What the hell do I know? Who knows? I just throw my opinion out there and we'll see what happens. The other thing I want to kind of get to as well, two more things here before we end up ending the program, is that which I don't understand, how the Jets did not see the situation with Hassan Reddick and how that was going to play. Obviously, Eagles didn't want to deal with it, but the Jets did. But here's Robert Salah on if there could be a path for Hassan Reddick to be ready for week 1. This is courtesy of SNY New York.
Yeah. Well, depending on, I'm assuming he's in phenomenal shape. Like I said, he's a veteran. He knows what he needs to get ready. He's had success in multiple buildings and multiple schemes with multiple coaching staffs, and so he's going to know what he needs to do to be ready for week 1. So he still has plenty of time. Did it look good? It's hard to tell.
See, even the coach doesn't know what to say there, because he says, someone asked him, did you see the video of him working out? This reminds me, and let's go back certain years here, to Philly in the whole T.O. situation. Granted, it was two different things, but it's almost the same way. Like how, and again, the Jets already get enough, I think, gump from so many people, from so many teams, even their own fan base. But this has been basically the leading news all through preseason, all through camp. It's just been what Hassan Reddick going to do. Is it going to be ready? You had Trent Williams from the 49ers. It didn't get signed on the 53-man roster, but they have him on the reserve list so that when he gets ready, he can bring on there. I mean, this, to me, when athletes start, and I understand about the whole thing getting paid, I get it, whatever, that's what you guys end up doing. But now the holdouts, and there's a point in time where the owners have to now start saying, here's the deal. Either you're playing or you're not playing. If we cut you, you did it to yourself, one way or the other. And I was into agents would be a little bit smarter and saying, my guy will be out there on the field. Don't you worry about it. We'll somehow or another get the contract going. And the perfect person I can use as of recent, as an example, was Mike Evans with the Buccaneers. Didn't get, I think, the payday he was looking for, but showed up at practice, showed up all season long last year, got his contract, and he's not worried about it until another year from now. But again, Jets, boy, oh boy, it's not the way to start off the regular season.
So I'm chomping at the bit referencing my horse racing, but 3 things about this situation. Number one, all of you AFC gurus and stuff out there, you can look at the team, you can see they have Sauce Gardner, you can see they have Garrett, you can see they have A-Raj, whatever you want to call them. The Jets will not win the AFC East. They will not. Just take that away, because they are still the Jets, right? Some teams, regardless of the talent, will find a way to self-implode. The Jets they have so much potential, so much talent, so much whatever, but you got to get rid of all this little extra stuff. You just have to. And I like the Jets. I want them to succeed, but the Jets will be the Jets until they're not the Jets. The Jets, you have to show me you're not going to be the Jets. Mm-hmm. Same way the Bears have got to show me recently that you're not going to be the Bears, right? Holdouts in today's day and age have become so prevalent that not only are they holding the team at ransom and holding the ownership at ransom and holding the other players at ransom, they're taking away from the real fiber and the integrity of the profession in the game. There really does need to be something written into the CBA that says, not only will you be fined, not only will you lose money, but if you continue to hold out while you have a binding contract with a certain team, you will then lose games played. It's just because the ownership has to receive something on the other side. We're always in this power struggle in sports where ownerships have power, players have power, we do this pendulum thing, blah, 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 blah. But we're at the extreme now, like you said, with the players where I'm good. I'm a veteran. I don't want to show up. I don't want to be this. I want to be paid. Give me a 1-year contract. I'm going to hold out, blah, blah, blah. Because it's going to take me a couple of games to get the speed anyway. I'm sorry. And this is where the real world doesn't apply. In the real world, if you're like, hey, guess what? I've been here for 2 years, but I really don't like my contract. And, I'm just going to stay home until you guys figure it out. You'd have a pink slip and a letter and a box with your stuff on your door by EOD. You just would.
Yep.
You're back on the scale where talent, potential talent, doesn't really equate to the headache, because then it's a headache for everybody else on the team. And you say it's not, it is. Now, Patrick Mahomes is like, I'm holding out because I want to get paid. Yeah, that might be a little more of a problem, but Patrick Mahomes isn't going to hold out. Josh Allen isn't going to hold out.
Correct.
Why? Because they're the leaders of the team. They're a face of a franchise. They're an integral part for that stuff moving forward. That's where, again, we talked about earlier, it hurts. You begin to overvalue your own talent based on minimal performance. Minimal performance. And performance within a particular scheme that accentuates what you do. Right? I mean, you take Emmitt Smith, as great as Emmitt Smith is, it's phenomenal. But you put him on the Detroit Lions with that Detroit Lions offensive line, you're not going to yield the same results. You're not going to have the NFL's leading rusher of all time. Now, you put Barry Sanders on the Cowboys, good Lord, you might have 60,000 rushing yards. You might have 170 touchdowns from Barry Sanders. I'll line up against Leon Lett on one side, and sure, I'll run behind him. I'm scoring touchdowns. But when you begin to overvalue yourself as the player because you've had this little bit of success and it's not been repetitive, or this little flash in the pan stuff, you create this Pandora's box of where we're paying for the flash in the pan. Mm-hmm. You see it in baseball all the time, which is crazy in my mind. Some of these contracts that get thrown around, look like you're getting $150 million for what? You were like a 320 hitter for 1 year in your career, and now you're back $250. Can't. Why? Why are we spending this money? Why are we bowing down? Because it's not just the owners, right? It's the fans, it's the teams, it's the fandom nation. Whatever. You're laying down to the request of these guys, and you're being held hostage by it, like you are. I mean, show up and do your job, man. Just do your job. You're old adage, right? You're getting paid to play a kid's game. And yes, you should be secure. Yes, you should have insurance. Yes, you should protect from CTE. Yes, you should have all of these pension things that are out there. But if I sign my name on a paper and this is what I'm supposed to be, well, the market value changed. Now you have to go up. Do I? What right do I have to go up? Oh, I'm going to hold out. Well, then guess what? Enjoy yourself holding out over here. I'm going to fine you for not adhering to the contract. And when you get back, then maybe we'll figure this out. Because a lot of teams have gotten to the point where that was just like, hey, guess what? Hold out as much as you want. And I'll fine you. And then you come back, sign you, be on the team, won't even pay you. Won't even play you.
Right. No.
It's going to have to happen.
They do, and you figure the Jets have already said they're not giving him his money back.
No.
When he gets fined, he's getting. So my thing is, so now you're holding out.
Yep.
I believe it's supposed to be like some 10 million plus that he's going to get in fines. So you get your contract, but you've already lost 10 million from your current contract. It's just, I don't understand the mentality of the athlete. And again, what in the heck do I know? What do I know? Because it's one of those things. Joey B says that in honor of Dunkin' Dad, I just went to D&D here in Fort Collins, Colorado, accepted the fact their chillers are 90% ice and got banged 575. Great segment with Dunkin' Dad. Joey B, by the way. It is. Joey, I gotta tell you that absolutely sucks. It's like, I mean, most places, at least Wawa, when you go to Wawa and you get what's my my go-to drink there? Dun, 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 dun. What's our not the energy drink? Because they always have usually the specials towards summer, and I'm not talking about the Wawa Hoagie Fest either. What's my oh my God. Now I drew
Powerade or
no, they're smoothies.
Oh, they're smoothies. They're smoothies. Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah. Goodness gracious. At least when you get those, like you get something. It may not be 100% healthy, but you're not getting, you're not getting a cup of ice. My lovely wife and I had gone to, we went to McDonald's, and on the cup, a McDonald's cup, it'll tell you this is the fill line for the ice, and basically that's your drink. It's ridiculous.
Let me circle back to this real quick. First night, Paris, we got done with everything. We get back. We sit at this little cafe thing. We're like, yo, let's just have a little drink, see if they have any like little finger food, dessert, appetizer, stuff like that, because we had done the Eiffel Tower and all this kind of stuff. And it was getting late again, right? It was getting close to this like 1 o'clock hour. And the guy's like, oh, we just have, coffee right now. What do you guys want? So I get a little cappuccino. She gets cappuccino. I get some kind of espresso thing. But obviously the coffees and stuff are there. Like they're supposed to be small, right? Mm-hmm. You're supposed to enjoy the flavor, whatever it is. So it was a big presentation with very minimal coffee or espresso with a lot of like foam and this really, I'll call it thin milk, right? It wasn't heavy like a whole milk, right? She glances over and she sees the golden arches. I was like, this is great. So I don't want any. I said, I can't believe you're actually going to McDonald's in Paris, but let's go. We go over, same exact thing happened. Want a fountain soda. And I said, well, let's get coffee to go.
Right.
I said, because it's McDonald's, they have coffee, right? I get an 8-ounce cup of coffee. It has about 5.5 ounces of coffee inside of it. Totally ruined. She gets the fountain Coke. It was, like Joey said, 95% ice. It was like, here's your cup. We splashed some water on top, some Coke on top, 3 sips, and we're done with it. And I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Which, kudos to Wawa, because there's a lot of times you're in control. Loading up your ice how much you want. You can kind of mix and match with the soda machines that are in there. And, fun fact for Dunkin', right? I always go with the less ice or no ice, because they just scoop.
Yeah.
At that point, it was like, we would go and we get her daughter the refreshers. And I'm like, pay like $4 or $5 for what? Like 3 ounces? 3 ounces of drink? Come on now.
As Joey B says, "LOL, I heard at the Olympics in Paris, all the Americans were at McDonald's to get their ice and their sodas."
Yes. Yep.
It's insane. I just it doesn't
Totally
make-
different. Totally different.
It's and kind of a weird way here to end the show with, but as we're thanks to Joey B and we're talking about different things here. But no, Wawa is smart when it comes to their smoothies because there's a lot of times if you end up getting, so let's say you go with a small instead of the medium or large, depending who the person is. And listen, Wawa, I'm not getting anybody in trouble because I'm not going to eat any of the stores, but every once in a while you'll get lucky with a person being like, you know what, there's this much left over. Here's a side cup. There you go. There's the rest. So it's not like you're getting 2 full-size drinks. It's just whatever's left over. But again, it doesn't make any sense to me why when you go to these places and you're going to get a drink, it's like no different than Starbucks. Starbucks, and just like a Dunkin' Donuts, those chicks, whatever. Oh, here you go. But if you take out the ice, you're getting literally about that much. And we were at the Summer League not this past summer, the summer before last, summer of 2023. And Debbie and I, because in Vegas, we love going there. Her 2 sons are there, and it's a great time. But we refused to purchase $8 coffees in the morning. So we went over to McDonald's and getting, I think it was like for $1.65, whatever it was, right after app. And it was freaking great. It was, I honestly would say in comparison to Starbucks, they did a really good job. And you paid very little. It drives me bananas when you go somewhere and you ask for a drink and here they come with a big old scoop of freaking ice. If I wanted ice, I would have said I want ice in a cup. I want my drink in the cup.
That's right.
You guys can take it for yourselves.
That's right.
It's insane.
Now, to answer Joey B real quick, when I was in Paris, I was a pickpocket rings. Not so much in Paris. They were there. You could see when they sort of clustered a little bit or they're approaching tourists or whatever. Definitely in Rome, though, you were a little more apt to sort of pay attention to the congestion, especially when you were around Metro, Termini, a lot of the big tourist attractions, Trevi Fountain, even outside of the Vatican area. People just know where individuals are going to be at, so they sort of congregate. And you get a lot of those walk-up approaches the same way you get in Vegas. They want to try to give you something, and right away, you're real quick to, no grazie, no mercy, and you're just like, no, like I'm good. We were approached several times with a guy trying to pass out roses or flowers, and they'll lay it down like they've already given it to you. Oh, now I lay it down, and you got to pay me for it. And you're like, do I have to pay you for this? Like one time courtesy, but that's good. Then 1 turns into 3, 3 turns into a dozen, and you're like, sorry, nope, sorry. And it's really, setting that standard right from the get-go. If you want it, sure. If not, just nope, sorry, thank you, move on. And they're used to getting told no, but if you do sort of get yourself into that whole thing, then spend a lot of time backing out of it.
Yeah, well, it's like the Vegas girls. It's the same way when you go out to the strip. It's like, oh, you want to take a picture? And if you don't know any better, you go up to them and they'll say, oh, let me see your phone. And then they'll take a picture, and then they'll hold your phone hostage and tell you got to pay us $20 for that picture, or they go back and end up deleting it, which doesn't make any freaking sense to me. Like I get it, I understand it. Vegas, you're going there, it's a big gimmick, just like the guys who have kind of like the Chippendales type of club, whatever you want to call it out there for the women to go see the men, I guess, go-go dancers, whatever hell you want to end up calling them. But it was the same way. We ran into one. Again, it might have even been the summer before last when we had stepped out. And then the guy first he wanted to see if Debbie wanted to take a picture with him. Debbie said no. And then he talked about how political, without me getting political, how Vegas doesn't want to be as political as the folks that were moving in from their state. And I don't even want to mention the state they were coming from. But the dude was really cool. But at the same time, when he was talking to us, he's like, doing a little side chat with Debbie and I. And then he was looking at the girl like, picture, you want this? So it's great. Vegas knows how to hustle, but at least, if you say no, thank you, they're nice enough to do so. With the ladies out on the street, and I'm not talking about your streetwalkers, I'm talking about the ones, that put on the costumes and stuff. It's just, you can't make that eye contact. Because once you do, they come up to you and like, give me your phone, $20, and you're in. So it just doesn't make any damn sense. Joey B, as it go to close it out, It says Angel in Europe would angle those pickpocketed people. It said when he used those kids as lookouts too. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And then he follows up with Go-Go Dancer. Angel just outed himself as an old guy with that. Listen, Joey B, I don't know what.
We're going to be playing ourselves out with some Burt Bacharach today, what the world needs now. Austin Powers flashing in the background.
Exactly. Why? Because I forget. I don't know. What are they male dancers?
I don't know. Chippendales.
I guess.
Chippendales. That's probably age of me to the early 80s growing up, right? It's always something, right? It's always something. But, it's all right. People trying out there making a living, but just fun fact, beware, right? Keep your eyes and ears open. I took my Merce, that I carry everywhere and I do all these big events or whatever. And I had it strapped, kept it in front of me, loaded my stuff inside of it. And for the most part, it was okay. As long as you're, they are strippers, yeah. That's like a little Wedding Crasher reference right there.
Yeah.
She's a stripper for God's sake. And I think she was in Colorado too.
Oh.
That's a great scene with Dwight with Dwight Yoakam, man. It's amazing.
Strippers can afford an $8 cost in Vegas. Listen, some of these, I don't know. It's the same way. What's the other thing too? And I know I have to end that show
the
here.
Monks.
What's the other one where they walk around with like the freaking bracelets? And
yeah.
Here you
Where
go.
like the Taoists, the monks and stuff like that are walking up to you trying to put on your wrist. Oh, say a prayer. This will give you peace, blah, 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 blah. And then like, oh, for your donation. And you're like, was really playing off the religious vibe here. Thought we were having a spiritual connection, and you were really just out here for goodwill, trying to help people out. But I guess Buddha needs some money, so you just hold on to this, buddy. Nothing against you, but if I'm saying a prayer and I'm dropping money in, it's going to be in one of those votive candles inside of some church where I get on my knees, have a little quiet moment.
It is. Listen, everybody's got their gimmicks. People know how to do stuff. They know how to work the crowd and this, that, and the other. But I mean, there's also some really good entertainers too out there on the Vegas Strip. And I did hear, to end this, and my wife was telling me this, that they're taking away the fountains at the Bellagio and putting something in place of it, which I find, I can't even believe. Yeah, I when she told me, it was last night, we were talking about it, that they're taking away the fountains. That's what the other thing that people go to Vegas for, is because they go to see the show, the Bellagio Fountain Show. Mm-hmm. I know the first time I had the opportunity of doing so was 2020 during COVID, because we went. I think it cost us all but $21 to fly out to Vegas, and the rooms are dirt cheap because where the hell you were going to go? Once they started opening things up, Florida was first, Vegas was next, and we're like, screw it, we're going there. Yep. But I can't believe they're taking away the fountains to put up some other, I believe it's supposed to be a building in place of the fountains. I just think that's a major no-no, but I forget the story. And if she tells me, I'll share it out with everybody else on social media. But again, it shouldn't happen that way. There's certain things you go to Vegas for, and you already know it. If you're not a gambler like myself and my wife, you have the best time people watching, going to shows, whatever the case may be. If you're a gambler, you might not make it back. You might be taking Trailways or Greyhound or something else on the way back, because even the airline ticket is going to cost you too much.
Reminded me of the Joni Mitchell song, Paved Paradise, put up a parking lot. It is, it is. It's iconic. It's a reprieve, a little bit of, peace, beauty in the midst of all of the rampantness that goes on there, and being able to find those little spots no matter where you go to appreciate that scene and the silence and sort of the mystery of everything. Mm-hmm. You need that places, right?
Yep, we do.
We don't have enough of that. We don't have enough of that. It's all over Europe.
Yeah, it's because you got to break away. You got to break away from the norm. Honest to God,
you have to.
There's things I've always say. Whatever you do in your own home, your own four walls, right? No one ever knows about it because you're doing in your own four walls. But when you go out to like Vegas and stuff, and you go out in the streets and you see what happens out there, it's a breakaway from the norm. You need a little excitement in your life. I'm not saying that your world needs to be filled with drama, because there's enough shows on TV that you can watch that are drama filled. But when you're constantly on the run, like for me, the first time that I went to Vegas, that was the first time I was on vacation after 20 years of doing nothing but working in Philly. I had to move to Florida, meet my wife, to go to vacation for the very first time. And I literally cried when we were coming down the escalator, and she looked at me like, what was wrong? We weren't married at the time, But I told her this is the first vacation I've had over 20 years. And it's just because all I did was just constantly work. So every once in a while, everybody, I don't care who you are, you could be a Bible thumper. Just go out, enjoy life, explore. The world is already crazy as is, but just take that moment just to suck it all in. Just this is life.
There's so many times, and I'm 100% guilty of it, just to wrap up, where you experience a lot of things and you do a lot of things, but a lot of times you're not present in that moment. And to use your example, when all that realization really hits you in the face, and you're like, man, I am going to appreciate this. I am going to slow down. I am going to take this in because I know this is going to be here. It's still going to be there when I get back. Still going to go on. But that's like the key for like people disconnecting, right? I know people, they're like, I've been here and there. I'm like, but did you enjoy it? What do you remember? Oh, we had great food and blah, blah. I was like, but it just stopped to like maybe look at the stars to see how they're different from where you are, right? That vibe we talk about, the just, again, like you said, maybe even challenge yourself to do something that isn't in your normal wheelhouse. I mean, this last year, my lady and I, like I've jumped off of like this 40 whatever foot like rock thing into the ocean. I would never do that. Screaming my kid's name, saying a prayer. We jumped off of like little cliff things in the Dominican Republic and went down little slides and stuff like that. But it was way out of my comfort zone. Going to the top of the Eiffel Tower, completely out. Like, I'm not a big fan of heights. Walking across the Royal Gorge Bridge out there in Colorado, not a big. Going in the gondola coming back, I was getting chided the whole time because I was like, kind of peeking out the sides. But right, it's done. It happened. Did it. You can look back on it, and it got you away from just what you normally do. And maybe in those moments when you have instances of hardship or you feel potential conflict or whatever coming up in life, you're like, wait a minute. It's not all about this. Chill for a second. Put it down to that lower gear. And it's helped. Like, it's definitely helped because you do see, Broad Street, right? You see a broader picture of how things are, and it's always good, man. It's good to have the conversation. It's good to go experience those things. And my last little burp to that, take advantage of those opportunities because all the bills, all whatever, is still going to be. Don't put yourself in a hole. But the time to do those things, it passes. It just passes and it goes away. It goes away. And you don't get it back. And all the coulda, woulda, shouldas, you should have. It's going to matter. Take the half-hour drive, man. Take the 45-minute drive. It's going to be well worth it when you get there.
Yep.
Well worth it, even if it's just for the peace.
That's exactly it. Joy B says, Royal George Bridge, Dunkin' Dad, you the man. But we were out there last summer.
Scary as.
Colorado was, to experience it for the first time, it was absolutely stunning, especially in the mountains. The only thing, it's kind of weird for us because we've gotten so used to the sunset, obviously here being on the beach, but when you say going over the mountain, it's something else. But you have to take the time, breathe, soak in life. Just remember when you wake up and you go to bed, you wake up to make good choices, good, bad, or different. It's your choice what you make in the morning and the evening. So always thank the person that you're with. Thank the good Lord that you're here to see another day. And, we'll see what happens here in hopefully many more sunrises to come versus the sunset. So thank you to Dunkin' Dad. Thank you to all who experienced the little fallout, what ended up happening at the very beginning of the show because things do happen when you're going live. But this will not be the last time, too, that you guys will see the Dunkin' Dad. So thank you all. We hope you have an enjoyable rest of your day. Now, see, things are a little bit frozen here. We hope you guys have an enjoyable day. Don't forget to just thank someone today, just because out of the blue, just tell them thank you. And don't forget the men and women who protect our communities, our countries, and have died for us so we can go out here and do the things that we do on a normal basis. Also, the Drive with Q coming up later on this afternoon from 3 to 5 p.m. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day. Martinez Company, we are out. There we go. And let me bring back the screen. I don't know. So today, when I start off the show, it happens like every once in a while. Once in a blue moon, things just go friggin' squirrely. Today had me one of those moments where it went squirrely. But